welcome to Make Your Passion Pay. I'm Luann Beekler, creator of the Make Your Passion Pay Playbook, your host and guide on this exciting journey to building joyful and successful work environments. Known as the Little Spark, I've helped countless individuals and businesses ignite their potential through transformational coaching, creating thriving businesses and joyful workplaces. I have experienced the challenges of leaving toxic workplaces and building something better. I bring firsthand wisdom to help you align your work with your values. With insights drawn from working alongside world-renowned leaders and a deep passion for community and connection, I'm here to show you how to lead with joy and purpose. Let's dive into today's episode and start making your passion pay. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Make Your Passion Pay podcast, where we talk about the Make Your Passion Pay playbook and the 6 C's of making your passion pay, which are connection, clarity, collaboration, core values, creativity, and commitment. And today I have Ally Machate here with the Writer's Ally. Little different twist today. We're going to talk about the value of having a book as a business owner and what it can do for you. And when I met Ally, it was just a delight to hear from her and her passion as a writer and for supporting writers. So welcome, Ally.
Thanks so much for having me, Luann. I'm so happy to be here.
Tell us about how you got to where you are today, Ally. I'm always interested in people's stories.
Oh, goodness. Well, it's a long one, so I'll keep it short. But it all starts really when I was a child. I really loved books. I loved story time. My parents would read to me every day. And as the family legend goes, they wouldn't read to me enough. They had jobs. Who would have thought? And I really wanted more story time. So I started trying to teach myself to read. And my mother, who was an elementary school teacher, encouraged that and supported that. And so I started reading at the age of 3. And I would make little books out of construction paper and crayons, and I would give them to, my parents' friends and my neighbors, and I would say that I was a book publisher. I was publishing the book. So I got the bug real early. I loved everything about it, and that really stuck with me all through academia. I did all the English majory type things. I was editor of the school paper and on the lit mag and the yearbook committee and all that good stuff. And when I went into college, it also continued. The internet was really first becoming a thing, and so I started freelancing for pay. It was my first freelancing job as a writer during school, and had an internship at a small regional publisher, which is where I really started to learn what it takes to write and publish and market a book. And then finally, the big twist was that I got my dream job. I got a job as an editor at Simon Schuster, which is one of the big 5 publishers in New York. It was an incredible opportunity. So I, moved to New York and took that job and learned a lot. I was very fortunate to be part of a department of people that were very supportive of their young people and their junior editors, which is not universally true in publishing. In many places, they were treated like secretaries. That wasn't the case at Simon and Schuster. And so I got to learn a lot. I acquired my first book as an editor before my first anniversary, and just kind of kept going from there, learned what it really meant to successfully publish a book, what kind of a platform authors needed to see the results they wanted, just all the things at the very highest level of book publishing. But then we had a sequence of events that I'm sure a lot of people listening will remember. We had the dot-com bust in the early 2000s, followed by 9/11. Which was very traumatic for New York industries. Just from a business perspective, a lot of companies saw many years of layoffs, and publishing was no exception. We went through a number of years of layoffs. And so I used that opportunity to step away and take a break. I was almost finished with a master's degree that I had been working on for some years. And I thought, well, I'll finish that up full time and I'll do some freelance editing, and then I'll come back when the job market opens up a little bit more. And I just loved working directly with authors in that capacity so much that I never looked back. And so worked first independently for a number of years as an editor, a book doctor, eventually a ghostwriter.
book doctor.
Yes.
Okay, you're gonna have to share some of this language with us.
Oh,
Finish the story
absolutely.
first, though.
100%. So, yes, I was working as an editor, as a book doctor, as a ghostwriter for a number of the big five publishers, for a number of independent authors and agents. Excuse me. And then self-publishing started to really, really grow. We saw a really incredible shift with the invention of print-on-demand technology. Of course, then the ebooks, the internet itself becoming a more viable platform to help connect people directly to readers instead of having to depend on what the big publishers were relying on. And the whole landscape changed. And so my business changed as well. And I started building a team. And the Writers Ally was born. The intent was to have kind of a one-stop shop where people could come and get services and advice and support that they could trust from people who actually had been in the industry, not just people who liked books and had good grammar, people who had the business background and the industry context. And here we are today.
Wow, that is so great. There is a lot involved in the book business
Indeed, indeed there
and
is.
publishing, and I love the way you tell the story and show the transition, how the world has moved with relationship to that, because some would say books are going to be obsolete, but I don't think that's true.
I've heard that several times already in my career, and I'm sure over the years I'll hear it several more times with AI. That's the latest threat, right? But with any kind of new technology, at least when it comes to books, I don't think books are ever going to go away. The format may change. We went from print only to having digital ebooks and then audio books, and I think content may be consumed differently, but long form content will always be around, I think.
I think print will always be around. I think people like to hold a book in their hands. I know I do, right?
Yeah,
And some people have trouble, and the electronic is not necessarily good for our eyes either, right?
very true. Very
So
true.
I don't think they'll ever really go away. They used to tell me that with the meeting events business too, back when video conferencing began.
Yeah.
Oh, well, the in-person meetings are going to go away. No, no, they'll never go away. We're human beings and we need the connection, which is one of the C's of making your passion pay, right? We
Yeah.
need connection with one another as human beings. It's in our nature. So, creativity is the C we're going to talk about today with relationship to why would a business owner want to have a book? What's the value of that?
So having a book can open all kinds of doors and attract all kinds of opportunities when you have a business. It can be anything from what we would consider like a supercharged business card, an asset that you can hand out to people physically or even digitally. There are ways to do that easily at networking meetings. It can be something you send to people to invite them into a call with you or to try to set a meeting up. It can be leveraged to help you grow a mailing list. It can be leveraged to get you onto stages and speaking opportunities, podcasts, really all kinds of things. There are lots and lots of opportunities that having a book either open to you or just help you to do better and faster. The key is it has to be the right book. Not just any book will get you those results.
Okay. So it also gives you credibility. It makes you an authority on that particular topic, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a reason why we say things like they wrote the book on it, or author is the root word of authority. I mean, it is quite literally baked into the concept.
Oh, I love breaking down words like that. Author is actually in authority. Never saw it before today. Cool. So, how do I write the right book for my business, Ally?
So, the right book for your business is one that is really designed strategically to accomplish a few things. First of all, it's designed to create a kind of journey where you're taking your reader on a journey of transformation, whether it's changing their mind about something and the way they think, or changing their body through some kind of regimen, or changing their business. Whatever it is, the book takes them on a journey. And we want the next step in the journey to be for them to connect with you in some way. If you're a business owner, it might be buying a course or signing up for your list or calling you to sign up for some kind of, private consultation, whatever that looks like. The right book leads people to take that next step, primes them to work with you, helps them to self-select, to figure out if you and the way that you work is something that would be right for them and their situation or their unique set of problems. And it's also a book that is very much designed, as you said, to highlight your authority, to show off who you are, how you see things, in particular, how you think about and solve a unique set of problems, which the book is geared into. And it's a book that's published in a way that allows it to be marketable so that you can leverage it, so that you can actually use it to accomplish any number of goals like the ones we just talked about. And to contrast that against the wrong book, we're not talking about, or the right book rather, we're not talking about whether or not a book is good. Because a book can be objectively well written, it can be packaged nicely, it can look lovely, and still not actually get you the results that you're hoping to get if it's not strategically designed to do so.
So it's starting with the end in mind,
Absolutely.
as our friend Stephen Covey would say, right?
That's
Start
right.
with the end in mind. And now you've got me thinking about that, right? So I have two published books, one I was a co-author on, and one I self-published, the I Hug Movement book up here. And now I've been working on mine around creating joyful workplaces, which speaks to the work that I do in the world today, right? And what would I want from it? I would want it to lead to possible courses that people could take related to that topic. And I would like to lead to speaking engagements and even securing clients,
Hmm.
right? So that's what you want to know. And I can come to you and tell you this is the results I'm looking for, Ally, and you're going to help me design the content to meet those needs. Is that the deal?
Yes, exactly. And it all of those things can happen with a book. Sometimes in certain situations, you may need to prioritize depending on your business and the way that you work. You may need to lean more into one of those things than another. But absolutely, it informs the way that you shape and structure the book. It informs the particular angle you take on your topic, and it informs the audience. Who are the people that you need to reach to make those goals happen? The book needs to be dialed into that as well.
So the other thing I've seen lately, or I've heard, I frankly have met a lot of publishers recently,
Sure.
uh, not in the traditional terms of Simon and Schuster, but individuals who have put themselves in that same kind of position like you.
Hmm.
And they talk about different sizes of books. They talk about books that actually lead back to a website or interaction on the internet. Tell me your thoughts on that,
On whether or not the book should lead back to a website?
on the different types of approaches, uh, different combinations of media is maybe the term.
Sure. Well, the first thing is no matter what kind of format or media you're using to convey your book, whether it's an audiobook, an ebook, a print book, any other type of format, you can always, at bare minimum, have a call to action inside the book.
Mm.
Now, most basic, that could just be a link to a page on your website where they opt in order to get more information from you. That's not a particularly compelling, but that is the kind of thing we're talking about. A more compelling version of that might be some kind of companion asset that helps them to get more out of the book. Maybe it's a companion workbook. Maybe it's a checklist. Maybe it's some kind of template or something that they can fill out to help them think through whatever problem it is you're helping them to solve. When you offer them something really valuable and useful, they're more inclined to click on that link and follow it back to your site and get on your list. And once you've done that, that opens up a whole bunch of doors, right? Because now you've got people in your ecosystem and you can nurture them and you can market to them and you can see what kinds of things that they need. But there are also other ways. So, for example, let's say you've been speaking for a while and maybe you've decided that one of your next goals is you want to start doing corporate retreats and you want to start coming in to large organizations and speaking to large numbers of employees. Now, this is where that thinking about the end in mind starts to really come in, because if that's something you want to do, the first question you have to ask is, does your book lend itself well to that kind of environment? Are the things that you're talking about the kinds of things that a large organization would want to call, hundreds of their employees together to listen to, or something they might even want to buy a copy of that book to gift to all of their employees in special sales. People do things like that as well. So you may have a book that's really, really smart about marketing, but that doesn't mean that a company wants to have you come in and talk about marketing to 300 employees, right? So it just depends. So the type of book that you're writing, you wanted to think about, well, if I want to be doing corporate retreats, what does my book need to be? What angle do I need to take where the people who are making those decisions in human resources are looking at their list of trainings and topics and things that they have a budget for? How are we going to bridge that gap? What does exactly my book need to do to be attractive to them so that they have me come in and give those talks or hire me to do those retreats? You also want to think about format. So if you have a book that is, let's say, very, very hands-on and workbooky, maybe it takes you step by step through a certain kind of process. That can be a really strong book for a workshop, but it might not be the kind of book that gets you up on a stage to do a keynote talk, right? When you send that book to an event organizer or a conference organizer and they're looking for keynote speakers and you give them a workbook, it's a little harder for them to understand how that content is going to translate into a keynote speech. And so even though they might think your material is really great, they're not very easily going to see how you're the best fit for their need, which is to have somebody compelling and engaging to come up and talk about big ideas on stage.
Hmm. Interesting. So I mentioned size.
Mm.
What is your opinion on size? I've heard as few, I think, as 45 pages, no more than 120 pages these days. What's your thoughts?
So again, it's always going to come back to that same question of what do you want to do with the book? Because the length of the book can come into play in a number of different ways. So you mentioned, for example, 45 pages. A 45-page book basically can't be printed. That's going to be an ebook. Anything under 100 pages, when you print it, is too thin to really have any kind of weight. It looks more like a pamphlet. And depending on how you lay the book out, it may not even be thick enough to put a spine on it, right? So that's the first thing. Are you planning to have actual physical copies? Are you planning to go to conferences where you sell books in the back of the room and sign books? And is that a big part of your strategy? If it is, a 45-page ebook is not going to cut it, right? You need something that's a little meatier. So you have a book that has some weight to it, right? That has some visual
Yeah,
presence.
yeah,
And the same thing goes in the opposite direction. So you also don't want a book to be too long. If you're dealing, let's say, with busy business owners and you've written a book on, how to eschew culture and, not overexhaust yourself and not, do too much, right? You don't want to give them a 110,000 word book. That's going to be like 400 plus pages. This is a person who's already overwhelmed. They're coming to you to
right,
fix overwhelmed. They don't want to read a book that long.
right.
So, asking yourselves those kinds of questions can really inform the length of a book. Now, if we're just talking about typical ranges, just to be helpful, um, typically a very, very targeted book that's designed is a little bit more of a lead magnet type book or something that you're really going to give away that leads people directly into purchasing something from you, like an online course. Many times we see books of that type in the 25,000 to 40,000 word range. That's very common for
Okay,
that
you
type.
switched to words on me there.
Oh, sorry.
So words versus pages.
Yes. So pages are very hard to measure because they vary very widely. The size of your trim. So if the book is a 5 by 8 versus a 6 by 9,
Hmm.
if you have design elements, if there's a lot of white space, the way that you lay the book out, those things can change the page count of a book dramatically. So in the industry, we tend to work in terms of words, not pages. And
Right.
especially with ebooks where pages are entirely irrelevant, right?
Right.
Words matter. So just to give you an
So give me
idea,
that word count again.
a 25,000 word book is about 100 pages on average. A 40,000 word book, which is the long end of that range, is about 200-ish print pages. 40 to 50,000 words usually ends up in that 200 225 page range. That's typical for that very narrowly focused type of book. The other type we see a lot are the books that are a little bit meatier, more of a thought leadership type book. So still something that you want designed to lead people to work with you, but a little broader in scope, a little bit more, I like to say, planting a flag in the sand, right? Like if you're writing a book where you want to come out and you want to really help people understand why the way they've been thinking about the workplace and the way they've been thinking about leadership is wrong or outdated. And now you want them to think about it in your terms. What does it mean to have a joyful workplace? Who are you? How did you come to this concept, right? Like what happened to you that made you change and think this way? What kinds of things have you seen happening with your clients when they've taken that kind of shift? That type of book tends to run a little bit longer. We usually see those more in that 40,000 to about 60,000 word range is pretty typical. And again, in terms of words, we're talking around 200 to 300 pages.
Got it. So one of those concepts was that I heard about was that you have less words in the book and you're almost chapter by chapter leading them back to your website for more content.
I mean, that's definitely part of it, but there's really a balance to be had there because you never want a book to just feel like an infomercial, right? Like
Right.
that doesn't get people to take action. So if it's too thin, if you're too afraid of giving away the farm, so to speak,
Yeah.
then you can have sort of a negative reaction and write a book that doesn't give enough. So you don't want to do that either. But it is true, you need to find that sweet spot between giving them enough so that you're building that credibility, so that you're giving them independent value. Nobody wants to feel like they spent, a day reading a book and didn't actually learn anything. It should stand on its own while also encouraging them to take the next step.
Got it. Yeah, I've read two just recently, actually, and I'm now much more aware of layout as I've been on that side of the table, right? And one had a quote versus a title on one whole page, that it was just the quote, and then the rest of it sort of dissected or analyzed that quote and what was it saying. And so maybe it was only another page or two about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it was very obvious that doing that way was stretching out the book by having a whole page. That was one. And another one was about tips, right?
Right.
And so again, the tip was one whole page. And then why that tip was recommended and the value of it was the description in the chapter. So very interesting. My iHug book here is only 76 pages in true content. It's probably, closer to 90 when you get all the other items in there, like the forward and all that good stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Front
within
matter and
that,
back matter.
it does have a spine, but a really little spine, and it's not that big. That's a poster size, if you will, that I printed of it, so you could see it on the camera.
Nice.
And I look at it as like a great coffee table book that it could sit on a table or in a reception office or what have you, that you could read any one given chapter, put a smile on your face, get a concept about hugs, and not have to read the rest of the book, even if you don't want to, right?
Yeah, that's
Or
nice.
or you get intrigued and then you go pick up your own copy of it. So that was our idea with that. Um, so, uh, tell me the difference between book doctor, ghostwriter, developmental editor, all these words that begin to get confused by the general public.
Yeah, for sure. I think the most confusing term when it comes to people who are writing books and thinking about how to get help with their books is the term editor. It's probably the one that causes the most confusion because it is kind of a very general word. There are, in fact, lots of types of editors.
Mm.
And that's where the confusion and the mistakes kind of start. Well, I need to hire an editor. Oh no, there's like six different kinds of editors. Like, how do I know what I need, right? So I'll sort of take it kind of linearly. A developmental editor is usually the first editor that you're working with. Now, Everybody works a little bit differently, but generally a developmental editor is somebody who's going to work with you on developing the book. So that might mean meeting with you at the very early stages to work on your concept and your outline and making sure everything is in alignment, all the way through to having a finished draft that a developmental editor then comes in and reviews and gives feedback on. And it's all big picture feedback. This is not about commas and punctuation and spelling. This is about, is it clear who this book is for? Is the promise to that core audience compelling? Is the journey that you're taking them on clear and engaging? Are the stories that you use tied in to the points that you're making? Are the exercises clear enough to follow? All of the different elements of the book, your tone, your pacing, all of that happens in the developmental stage. Now, you mentioned book doctor and ghostwriter. So a ghostwriter would be if you don't want to write the book yourself or don't have the time to write a book yourself, a ghostwriter will come in and work with you to pull the content and the expertise out of your head, usually through interviews, and then actually write the book for you with your input and approval, of course. A book doctor comes in somewhere in the middle of all that. So if you've written a draft, like book doctors usually are working with publishers and agents. A lot of my book doctoring was situations where publishers had brought on an author and a book that they thought was really marketable and that the person had the right platform and that everything seemed dialed in. But when the draft was delivered, they realized the draft really was not publishable. And neither the author nor the publisher had the time to go in and tear it apart and start from scratch. So they bring in a book doctor to literally redo the book. And it doesn't mean that they're rewriting the whole book. That would be ghostwriting. It's usually more like taking the book apart and fixing the flow, identifying spots where the author needs to write a little bit more, cutting out bits that might be redundant or irrelevant to that particular point. So it's a much heavier lift than developmental editing, where the editor is simply telling the author, this is what needs to be done, and you do it yourself. A book doctor basically does the work that the author would do after the developmental editor identified the problems.
Very interesting.
So from there, you move on to the next type of editing, which is copy editing. Once the draft is complete, once the concept is clear, all the big important rocks are in place, that's when you get into the polishing. A copy editor is the one who comes in and checks the grammar and the spelling and the punctuation and makes sure that you're capitalizing the same words, your 6 C's, for example, making sure, if you like to capitalize those, a copy editor is the one who makes sure that you are capitalizing them consistently throughout the entire book. They're the ones making sure that if you tell a bunch of anecdotes, right, that you don't get confused about the fake names you're coming up with the stories in your anecdotes and messing up, who you're talking about. Little bits of continuity and consistency and clarity. That's also part of copy editing. And then once that is done and the book is designed and the content is flowed through the template, so you have usually a PDF that represents what your actual book is going to be and look like on the inside, that's when the last stage of editing.
Manuscript?
Your manuscript, or really what we would call page proofs at that point. So
Yeah.
your manuscript is the document before it's laid out. Once it's put into the design template and you have that PDF, we call it a page proof. And that's where proofreading comes in. A
Oh
lot of
my,
people confuse proofreading for copy editing. Strictly speaking, proofreading happens on page proofs. And that's for a very important reason, because a proofreader is not only looking for any lingering errors that sort of slipped through or got reintroduced, they're also looking at things that are unique to those page proofs. They're looking to make sure that your title is always in the same font. They're looking to make sure you don't have 2 page 5s. They're looking to make sure that you didn't accidentally miss the copyright page, right? So it's very important that these things happen at the right place in the process.
wow. So that all that you're saying to me makes self-publishing seem that much more challenging.
It can be. It can be. I mean, book doctoring and ghostwriting are not things everybody needs, but developmental editing, copy editing, and proofreading are pretty much the essential 3 types that almost all editors need, or all authors need, excuse me. But
Say those again.
so book doctoring and ghostwriting, not everybody needs. Those are kind of higher level services that fit unique situations. But developmental editing, copy editing, and proofreading are sort of the essential 3. Almost all books will benefit from that level of editing, and almost all authors really need it.
Excellent. So, what's your advice for a business owner who now has sparked that we have sparked with the creativity of having a book as a lead magnet, a calling card, something that demonstrates their authority in the industry they're talking about? What's their first step?
In writing the book or publishing the book?
Writing the book.
Well, once you've really thought through this process that we're talking about, right? What exactly is it I want the book to do for me out in the world? How am I going to use it? Who are the people that I really need to connect with? What exactly am I solving for those people, right? You want to think about the thing that brings people to your book. For most business owners writing a nonfiction book, a book addresses a problem, right? Or a need that people have. So being really clear about what that is, and hopefully, ideally, that need is tied into what you offer in your business, because that's the whole point, is that you want to be presenting yourself as the solution for whatever they have to offer. So once you're
Nice.
really clear on all of that, you can start to outline the book, and you can start to think about, okay, if I'm going to solve this problem, what are the steps this person needs to take? What do they need to understand before they even dive into this? Well, what kind of myths do I need to bust, or what kind of foundational knowledge do they need? That's usually part one of a book, whether you separate it into parts actually or not. The first part is usually that foundational piece. What do people need to know to absorb what I'm going to tell them? The middle part, I call the meat and potatoes, or the tofu and potatoes for vegetarians in the audience. That's the section that has the good stuff. That's where your 7-step process lives. That's where your, different steps or different stages or whatever it is that you're teaching them or really explaining to them. That's the middle part of the book. And then at the end, you have a kind of wrap up, but you want that wrap up to be very deliberate. You want to make sure that the person is celebrated for their progress. You want to make sure that it's really clear to them what the next steps are and why they're going to get more benefit from continuing on that journey. And of course, you're hopefully teeing all of that up so that they see very clearly that if they want to do more and they're serious about solving this problem, that next step is going to be to work with you.
So, in answer to my own question of what's their first step, I'm going to tell them their first step is to find a developmental editor.
Once
Because
they have a draft,
all they have is an idea.
if all they
Usually, my experience is all they have is an idea, a gut feeling that I have a story to tell or I have some expertise to share, and I feel like I want to put it in a book. And that's it. And then they need all the rest of that for someone like you to pull it out of them and put it into a format. So, Allie, is that where someone would start with you if they just have an idea?
We do actually have a 90-minute consultation that we call the Positioning and Publishing Plan that is specifically designed to deal with a situation where someone only has an idea. It's also good if you have an outline or a draft. It's basically where most of our clients start, unless you're a seasoned author and you're already clear on all of this stuff. Everything we're talking about, this is not something most authors really know or they're trained to think about, right? What you see on the surface for most people is just what you said. I feel like I want to write a book. I have this idea. There's this thing I want to share. And they sit down and they start writing. They don't really know where to go from there. So yes, we do offer a consultation specifically geared toward that. You can also work with a book coach. Sometimes there are publishing consultants who will do sort of one-off, a few hours of just working with you on the concept, getting it really clear. Some companies like mine offer a service where they'll work with you on the concept and even outlining the book. We don't offer ghostwriting. I do have a network of people I'll introduce you to if you need that help, but we will help outline your book if you need that step. Developmental editors might be a good option, but it really depends on the editor. Many developmental editors don't come in until the draft is created. So if you really just have an idea and you want feedback on that first, I'd say a consultant or a book coach is probably your better bet.
And again, you offer that service.
Absolutely, yes.
Absolutely. So where can they find you, Allie?
So they can find us at thewritersally.com. If they read a little bit on our services page and they already know that that's where they need to start, there's a button they can buy the consultation session right there. Or if they just want to chat a little bit first, we have a free 15-minute fit call that we can start with.
free 15-minute fit call. That sounds like a great place to start.
Indeed.
Excellent. And did you tell me that you have a free gift for my audience today?
I sure do. So this can also be a really great place to start. Maybe this is the best place to start. I've got a 25-minute webinar called Don't Write the Wrong Book. And it helps people to analyze their concept. If you've already been writing, you can still benefit from this. It helps people really understand the idea between what makes a book the wrong book, how do you avoid writing the wrong book, how do you write the right book, and I walk them through a really simple 5-step process for how to think about the different ideas that they're weighing, or even to analyze the idea they're currently writing on to make sure that all of those pieces are in alignment so they can actually get results from their book.
Wow, that is excellent. Thank you so much. I think that is the place to start, to listen to that first. And I'm going to listen to that. I'm super excited about that.
Awesome.
So, many of the things you talked about today are going to be tools that I could use. I have books in my head that still need to come out. I have books that need to be probably relaunched. And perhaps that's a tool that you can help with. It probably goes back to that book Doctor in talking about that side of the coin. But super exciting, Ally. What I want my business owners out there to know is you too can write a book, right? And there's plenty of people out there to help with that, Ally and her team and others. And take advantage of this 25-minute webinar and at least dip your toe into that and see if it sparks an interest or a passion in you to get your story into a book and on paper, because it then does become a calling card and establishing your authority in the field that you would like to talk about. And these are the kinds of things we're talking about in the C Creative, in the Make Your Passions Pay. This is another avenue. One last thing, Ally, before we go. The book itself is rarely the money maker, correct?
Absolutely, especially for nonfiction writers with a business.
Yeah. So I want you to remember that. I was about to say it's passive income, but it's really not. You're not generating a significant amount of income from book sales itself. It's all the other things that come along with the sale of that book, with you establishing yourself as an authority and getting people to take action and call you. So thanks, Ally, for sharing your expertise with our audience today. We really appreciate it. We'll make sure the link to the free webinar is in the show notes. What's your website, Ally?
It's thewritersally.com.
Thewritersally.com. And of course, you all know how to reach me, luannb.com. If you'd like to talk with me more, always a free consultation from my website. And in the meantime, make sure you're going out there, living your passions and making your passion pay. We'll see you next time. Hey, everybody, thank you for tuning in to Make Your Passion Pay. If today's episode inspired you, I'd love for you to subscribe, leave a rating, and share your thoughts in a review. Every listener makes a difference in spreading this mission of joy and purpose. Want to take the next step? Share this episode with your friends, colleagues, or anyone looking to build a thriving, values-driven workplace. Together, we can create communities where passion fuels success. Until next time, remember, when you lead with joy, you inspire greatness. Let's keep making your passion pay.